Cheaters of Reddit, tell us why you are currently cheating on your so. Okay, I'll tell my story. I was involved with Denise for 9 years. She would pick fights seemingly anytime I was in a good mood, and frequently ruined important things for me, like my graduation party from college, by getting angry, sometimes because I was ignoring her, and other times, because I wouldn't leave her alone. I loved her, and tried to be everything for her, even though we fought all the time, because that's what I thought relationships were all about, work, right? But after we got married, she became genuinely abusive towards me. Some of my favorite Denise one-liners were, "You're worthless, you're never there for me. If we have kids, you probably won't even love them. I don't even want to have your kids." Our bedroom was dead. I asked her to go to counseling 3 different times during our relationship, but she refused, because we don't need it. Great. It got to the point that I was afraid to interact with her in any way. It was literally workout, dinner, bed. Eventually, I started to get really depressed and ended up talking to a friend of several years, Jamie. She was nice to me, not judgmental, and seemed to really care about me and how I felt. We started spending more time together, and it eventually started to grow into an emotional affair. Eventually, we fell for each other, then Denise and I separated and divorced, ironically after she asked me when we were going to start having kids. Of course, Denise found out. They always do. Obviously, she was very hurt and angry, but she ended up asking me basically why Jamie and not me. To which I replied, I can trust her with my emotions. She doesn't hurt me. We stayed up all night, talked a lot, hugged a lot, cried a lot, apologized to each other, and divorced uncontested. Denise and I are still friends, and Jamie and I are happily married. It just happened. I didn't mean for it to happen, but it did. We dated for 3 years in college, and I never strayed. I hardly even looked at another girl. We lived together for the last 2 years of college, and then we both graduated and moved home. Suddenly we were a long distance relationship. Instead of seeing her every night, I'd see her maybe once a month. At first it wasn't that bad, but then she stopped texting me back or returning my calls. We talked on the phone maybe once a week, and that was it. The girl who had been my life, my companion, was becoming a stranger. And when I did get to see her, I didn't even feel like a part of her life. She barely touched me, and I was lucky if we slept together once a month. When we did duck, it felt like going through the motions. She wasn't present. She didn't initiate. It was passionless, robotic. She would text me to tell me she was going out with ex-boyfriends for drinks, but not to worry about it. They were just friends now. And she'd sleep over at her male friends' houses, but again, they were just friends. I don't know if she cheated on me, and I don't want to know. But then the girl from the apartment next door started coming around. She laughed at my jokes. She told me how much she liked being around me. She would call to check up on me. She made me feel appreciated. One night we had drinks together and I slipped. I never told my girlfriend, and we never broke up. A year later we are still together in a passionless long distance relationship. That's my story. Married for 14 years, and I have cheated 4 times. I have 2 kids, and my wife isn't a bad person, but she is pretty much not interested in sex. A few months ago, on a business trip, I had a totally unanticipated romp with an acquaintance I only see about once a year. It was amazing, and everything that is not what I get at home. The smile and feeling of being needed lasted well after the fling ended. My wife actually asked straight out if I had an affair, and I admitted it to her. Surprisingly, it had the effect of increasing her sex drive, but only for a week. Now we are back to the same old place. I'm now at the point where I want to just discuss having an open relationship. I don't want to cheat on my wife, but going without sex just makes me want to nail every woman I meet. It is like money. When you don't have any, it is all you think about. All of the women knew I was married and not interested in getting a divorce. I have thought about counseling, but not really sure if it would help. It wouldn't reduce my sex drive, and it probably isn't going to convince my wife to have more sex. I was married until recently, last year, when I cheated on her in a similar fashion to this. Essentially, sex had dropped to monthly and was literally the last priority in the house. I can remember being turned down to vacuum and considered a chore. Unfortunately it's somewhat a bed of my own making, as when we first got together I can recall the sex being adequate, but definitely something I compromised on. Throw in some other things, money, work, TV obsessions, and failing to improve things and I became quite unhappy. One of the things we discussed was me using prostitutes, but that didn't fly. Eventually my frustration/sadness turned to anger and one night, I decided to duck it. I'm going to do something selfish, and accepted an offer by a coworker. What I eventually realized during the process of my affair is that the things my ex provided, caring, industriousness, were actually really easily provided by any other woman. There was nothing particularly unique about her that couldn't be replaced. The hard part was finding someone who had a similar sex drive to me, which I found in my affair. After a few months of cheating though I broke it off with the wife, never confessed to spare her the extra pain, and it's been a year and a half now that I've been happily dating the other woman. It's never too late to get what you want and deserve out of life. I cheated when I was younger and the answer is simple. Instant gratification. I knew it was wrong, but it didn't matter. My mindset was why wait to get what you want later? I can get it now and later. I felt terrible about it, and I would never do it again. Let the downvotes begin. I have cheated on boyfriends and been involved with several married men. I'm not going to give you some lame excuse. I cheat because I honestly like the attention. In every relationship there comes a time when you do not have that attention anymore. Things settle in, and then it gets boring. I could break up with them, but I do not really want to. They meet the emotional need to be held and intellectually stimulated, and the new guy meets the excitement and physicality. I was on and off with a girl for 2 years. I loved her more than anyone I'd ever loved before, but she was afraid of love and her feelings for me, so it was always mixed signals. One day we finally talked about everything, got my closure, and was able to move on with my love life. A couple months later I started dating this amazing girl. She seemed perfect for me. Everything was great. She knew I was still friends with my ex, and she was able to accept that for the most part. However, after a while she wasn't so okay with it, so I began to hang out with my ex behind her back. We never did anything until one day she asked me something that led to talking about us, and things escalated from there. I ended up kissing her, and she rejected me because I had a girlfriend. But I kept trying, and we made out a little. I didn't feel guilty afterwards because I loved this girl, and I had only known my girlfriend for a few months, so my feelings for her weren't nearly as strong. After I realized my ex and I weren't going anywhere, and it was better that we didn't, I asked her not to ever let me kiss her again, and to slap me if I tried. After some time I grew to care more about my girlfriend, and felt really guilty. I imagined her finding out, and how much it would hurt her. I developed so many insecurities from cheating. I felt like, since I could get away with it, so could she. So every time she would talk about her ex I'd cry. I know it was a bad thing to do, but I learned a lot from it. This is easier to answer than I would like. Some things about me first. I love my wife. I'm very passionate, romantic, caring, and I consider myself a fantastic father. I routinely surprise her with flowers, massages, kisses and aromatic situations. I've been married 6 years and have a wonderful 4-year-old child. I have no intention of ever leaving my marriage, and I want to spend the rest of my life with my so. With that said, here is the why. My wife for some reason no longer finds sex important. She would rather watch an important show or do the dishes than get overly intimate. I on the other hand, enjoy it immensely. It's vitally important to me in regards to feeling close to her. When we do have sex it's when it's convenient for her, i.e. God forbid if I initiate sex and she's not thinking about it. It's like pulling ducking teeth from a tiger. The person I'm with is in a similar situation and has no desire to leave her current relationship. She just has a need that is not being met at home. Overall, our society has commercialized and given us this image of marriage and being a couple that's not very realistic. Had I the choice, I would at this point prefer an open marriage or a poly type situation for both of us. Think the Showtime show Polyamorous. About 5 years ago, I was in a very turbulent relationship with a guy who I knew was cheating on me. I won't get into the details, but I found cold hard evidence of it. I cheated on him in retaliation because I was too weak to leave the relationship, but too proud to let it go on with no reaction. I felt like total scum. I would never ever do it again. Fortunately now I have a boyfriend who cares for me as much as I care for him, and there's no way either of us would cheat. You've been visited by Professor Papa. You lace all your classes this year, only if you comment, study hard, Papa.